You're listening to the Sentimental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome back to the Sentimental Podcast, where we discuss mental health in cinema, television, and popular culture, and how it is portrayed. What did they get right? What did they get wrong? And what should you know about mental health? I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a screenwriter as well as a professor of screenwriting. And I'm joined, as always, by my brother, America's psychiatrist, Dr. Joshua Jones, who, as well as only rolls 12s in Dungeons & Dragons, which is very strange, is a general and forensic psychiatrist.
So I only roll 12s on like a D20? Like that's all I roll?
It's weird. We all think you're playing with a loaded die. We want you to start your week off right with our podcast.
But that's not even a good roll.
So I know, but but again, you
Okay,
got a loaded
whatever.
die. Something.
Okay.
We drop a new episode every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern. No, 9 a.m. Eastern. 9 a.m. Eastern. And we're also dropping a new episode every Thursday, and you're listening to our Thursday supplemental episode of The Last of Us. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our hottest and spiciest clips. And now full episodes on YouTube. Today we're continuing our coverage of The Last of Us, which is based on the popular video game of the same name. And Josh, tell us about what we're covering today.
We're going to talk all about grief and loss, and we're going to center it around the third episode in the series, Long Time, the Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett episode that really hit the national consciousness, or at least people who are watching this show, pretty hard last year. And then at the end of the episode, we'll talk a little bit about what's in the news right now. So, Jeff,
Great.
Take it away.
Yeah, so this was a great episode, and it's something that Craig Mazin specifically does, and it's not unique to him, but it is something that he typically does. And what he'll do is he'll build a world, and then he'll focus on a character that's outside of our main group for just one episode. And we'll see a little bit of like more context for the world, and it gives us more context about like some of the journeys that people are going through. He did this with Chernobyl. There's an episode where we follow guys whose job it is to kill the dogs, following the fallout of because they can't have these animals roaming around, spreading the radiation, and it's a heartbreaking episode. And you see this guy who you have not seen before. He's introduced in this episode. You see his journey, and so we see that again here with this third episode with Nick Offerman. And Nick won an Emmy for this episode, which was well earned. But it starts with a man who has abandoned society, is perfectly happy having abandoned society, or at least he thinks he's happy, and then someone stumbles along who ends up being the love of his life, and he finds purpose, through that man. And my favorite moment of the episode, Josh, is after what's the character's name?
Which character?
Not Nick Offerman's character.
Frank. It's Bill and Frank. Yeah,
Bill and Frank. Okay.
Nick is Bill, and Murray Bartlett is Frank.
So Frank has just given him a strawberry plant, has planted strawberries, and he takes him out to see it. And Nick Offerman says, "I was never afraid until you came along," and he means it really lovingly. And he has found his purpose in life. And he says that later to Joel. It's like, this man, Frank, became my purpose. And I just thought that was so incredibly powerful.
So, I mean, I think the first thing to talk about there is dissecting Bill's response to loss. So the Nick Offerman character. So his loss, of course, is the loss of society, and society has collapsed around him, and he's become the survivalist. And his response to loss is isolation. He is going to become an island unto himself. Mm-hmm. He makes his own compound. He's got his routines. He's got his barriers and his traps. By the way, a trap into which Frank falls. Mm-hmm. That's how they first meet. And that's what he's got. His solitude is his response to his loss, and he thinks he's great. Cliches are cliches for reasons. And so the cliche, no man or no woman is an island, it hits at our need for attachment. Our need, even through loss and grief, attachment and our need to be connected to others springs through. It blossoms up like a plant, like a plant surviving a hard winter. It just happens, and that need is there. And so
why doesn't he get attached to anything before he meets Frank?
It doesn't sound like he doesn't sound like he meets a lot of people. I mean, who knows why we get attached to who we get attached to? If there's some spark, there's some start.
Do you think that there was enough? Do you think there was enough in the episode to assume that he was dealing with this homosexual, with being a homosexual, in a way that he isolated himself from people who weren't going to accept that lifestyle? Do you think there was enough?
I think so. Yeah, I think they talked about that, and we think during the piano scene, when he came out to Frank, he did it in such a way, an emotionally painful way, that it was pretty clear. At least I thought it was pretty clear that he was closeted during the before times.
Right. Yeah.
Was that your take?
Yeah, I think so. And obviously, like, I mean, in a way, like, our uncle is a bit of a, survivalist. He certainly has a stash of some stuff that would help him survive an apocalypse. But he's also like, him and I had an incredible attachment, and he was my best friend in a way for a long time. So it's not that people who are survivalists and isolationists can't form or aren't or don't want to form, incredible bonds. Oftentimes I think when you meet people who have isolated and you give them a little bit of friendship, then they come alive wanting to, like, all of a sudden be friends and still be misanthropic, still hate on the rest of the world, but now they've got someone to do it with. So I don't think isolation means like depression or there's anything wrong with them. It's just, it's just something that people like to do.
I wouldn't equate survivalism with isolation.
Right.
I know several survivalists, and they have their team that they're going to survive with.
Right.
So I wouldn't equate that at all. This was a Bill specific.
Yeah, but I think he was happy. He was happy that everybody was leaving. I think. I mean, they sort of make it like he really enjoyed setting up his compound.
Yeah. He believed he was happy.
That's the key. That's the key.
But I think it's also a universal experience that we will get into this routine where we think we're content, we think we're happy, and we probably are. It's not that that's fake.
Yeah.
But then something happens that shows us a different way.
Right.
And that's what happened with Bill and Frank. They both found connection after loss.
Right.
That was somewhat surprising, probably to both of them.
Yeah.
And then they had to deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah. Which was just wonderful. I mean, the Frank just challenged him in such amazing ways, and like that actor, man, I'm just gonna gush about him for a second. I first saw him in The White Lotus season 1, and
Murray Bartlett.
Yeah, he stole the show. He was so good, and he was in I think the second season of Physical. And did the same thing. Like his character was incredible, and I thought he kept pace with Nick Offerman. I don't know why he didn't get nominated as well. I thought some elements he in some ways he outshone Nick. And I'm going to make a little bit of a leap here. And this is one of those leaps that could possibly get me into some trouble.
Sure.
I think the reason why he didn't get as much love as Nick did is because he played a traditionally female role. And it was the love interest to the strong man. But this is a theory, or not a theory, but just something I've noticed about cinema. Man, women are way better actors than men. Men just act stoic and then get all this love. Meanwhile, women are like going through these incredible emotional arcs. And it's like, but we always laud the performance of the men. And for many reasons, not for whatever reason. I think we all kind of know the reason. There's a built-in misogyny to our culture that's inappropriate and I want to break down. But I think he didn't get as much love because he played the traditionally female role, which was the love interest to the man.
I think that men's portrayals in Hollywood still go back to the trope that the only real emotion that men should be allowed to show is anger. And as we've talked about here, anger is a secondary emotion.
Right.
And everything else you're taught, or at least we were taught growing up in the 80s and 90s, is not manly. Right. Everything else, jealousy, remorse, embarrassment, fear, all that stuff's not manly. So if you filter that into anger, that's okay. And I think that's what you still see on screen, Jeff.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of it goes back to like, I don't think it was High Noon. It was a TV show, but it was about the stoic. It was a Western. It was like the first like big drama, and it was a stoic Western, and it was just the stoic man. And I think that, John Wayne, and there's a lot of characters we've just fallen in love with who are like the stoic man, and so we love that.
Sure.
What I really do think is fascinating, though, when you're talking about acting, is I do think that less is more when it comes to acting. And I will see these clips on TikTok of like, these are the best 10 performances of the last 10 years. And it's always like a dude just like screaming his mind out. And they're just wrong. It's not that interesting. Yelling is not that interesting. And what I love about both Nick Offerman and Pedro Pascal is they don't do much. They just slightly change things, and it has a massive effect. But you can see Pedro Pascal, he never yells in this. He never screams. He never does much other than just kind of stare straight ahead, and his performance is incredibly captivating. You could just have him say in the first episode, what are you doing? And he says it with such disdain. And then the last episode be like, hey, what are you doing? He hasn't changed anything. It's just one has a lot of love in it and one has a lot of hate in it. But he's just living just a couple decibels, a couple degrees away. And it's just all the magic that can happen in that subtle change that I think makes for incredible acting. And Nick Offerman did the same thing. He barely changes, his vocation or his vocal performance, and deserved the Emmy, and absolutely deserved the Emmy.
Yeah. Well, what you do see change throughout this whole third episode is, of course, Bill, Nick Offerman's character's capacity to love and capacity to connect.
Yeah.
Even though we all know, and he knew in the back of his mind, especially in the apocalypse, that future loss is inevitable.
Right.
It's going to happen. Spoiler alert, everybody. Every attachment that you have to every person you know is going to end.
Right.
It's either going to end with their leaving, their death, or your death.
Right.
It just is. And so you'll see a lot of people who've gone through traumatic losses try the isolation route to try to inoculate themselves against the inevitable future loss.
Right.
And it doesn't work. It doesn't work because we are such attachment-seeking creatures that it just feels wrong.
Okay, I'm going to have more to say about the episode, but talk about then grief. Talk about like what are the healthy things that people can do to get through the first month of grief.
Talk about it. Yeah, 100%. Talk about your grief. Talk about your grief to people who will listen. Talk about grief to yourself. Talk about your grief to your deceased family member or friend. Yeah. Talk about it. Get it out there. Avoid doing the unhealthy things that you know are unhealthy for you. Right. So, if you feel like lying in bed, push yourself to get out. I mean, having a day where you're lying in bed feeling sad, that's fine. That's healthy. But push yourself to get out and do the things you know you need to do. Don't sink into, drug and alcohol bender. That's not healthy for you. Get out there and do the things that you know are healthy and talk about the person, talk about the loss. That's how you incorporate the loss into your life. Not getting over it, but incorporating it.
So what I heard there was if you're really happy, that's the time to have a bender. That's what you're saying?
That's how the song goes, Jeff. If you're happy and you know it,
have a bender.
Do a bender. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And what about then? That all makes total sense to me. Our mother ran a grief group. Because after our dad died, she got into a grief group and ended up running it because that's just what my mom did, or what our mom did. And long after these women were grieving, they just kept hanging out as the grief group. And I just always thought that was funny. It was one of my favorite things about Mom. It's just how she loved to organize people. But what I thought was interesting was I don't think she set up enough friends in advance. And I think that that's something that I would have as a takeaway of this is like, especially in our case of like, we knew that our parents were dying. Did we create an infrastructure for which we could grieve into? And that's something I think that people can do is like really take stock of like, hey, who would I talk to if I was going through the worst of it and if I was grieving? And if you don't have anybody, go get somebody. Go figure out who you can, build that relationship with. But I do think that there's something to like planning ahead, for some of this stuff. And right now, if you're listening, just think like, do you have someone that you could like say, hey, I need to come sleep on your couch tonight because I'm grieving and I just want to talk. Do you have somebody in your life like that? If you do, that's amazing. If not, you might want to think about having some conversations with people. And I think more people would be supportive than we think.
Oh, that's 100% true. I think I think we tend to underestimate how much we're going to be supported, and we also tend to overestimate how much sharing our grief with others is a burden on them. It's not actually a burden. Remember, this is this is one of the very few universal experiences that all humans go through. We all lose people. Right. It's part of the human condition.
So, Josh, you made a great comment about like, Nick Offerman. He tried to isolate, but he couldn't. And he ends up finding this person, ends up falling in love, ends up becoming his purpose, which I think is great. And we just like people fall into our lives. I really loved the ending when Ellie's reading the note, and the note is addressed to whoever finds this, probably Joel.
Right.
Which I just thought was great. And you just have this idea that like, it like was when they first meet, Nick like has his gun on him the whole time, and Joel's like, put away the goddamn gun, and it's like two alpha dogs like going at each other, and you're just like, they're gonna become best friends. But in the note, he specifically says, Joel, you're probably the one reading this, and even though I didn't like you, I respect you. And it's like, I bet Nick Offerman, or I bet Bill loved Joel, loved him, but would never tell him. Would never admit it, but he leaves the note to probably Joel. It's probably going to be Joel that comes along. And I just think that like, in a way, the alpha males like do love the alpha males, but they'll never admit it. They'll never have that emotional.
That's another flavor of attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were clearly attached to each other. I mean, obviously not as strongly as Bill and Frank or as Joel and Tess, but they had an attachment to name a person in your goodbye note. That's an attachment.
Right.
There's no way around it.
Yeah, exactly. I've certainly had people in my life. I think I might have told the story, but 9 people listened to that episode, so I'll tell it again. We were on a cruise over Christmas, and there was this guy with his wife, and he was clearly like a red state Trumper ex-cop sort of guy. And I'm just I'm a hippie liberal, but like I'm very large, and like I come off as like, a tough guy.
Do you?
Well, whatever. I don't care. I actually do not care if I come off tough or not. But he just kind of was like, yeah, can you believe how dumb this is? And I just kind of start talking to him, and I just show him a little bit of kindness, and I'm like, actually, I think it's great. And then I take a picture of him because I'm like, look, man, your wife is going to love it if I take a picture of you doing this, because like she's really into it. And I just showed him a little bit of kindness. I couldn't shake this guy for the rest of the trip. He just wanted to be my best friend because I showed him a little bit of kindness and connected with him on a level. And then at some point he said, he said something, and I was like, all right, I'm going to drop the hammer and be like, actually, man, I'm like an ultra liberal. And he's like, what, why, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, look, man, I don't want to talk about anything about that. You're here and you love your wife and you're doing this for her, right? And he's like, yes. I was like, well, I also love my wife. And he had talked about his kids, and I was like, you love your kids, right? And you're happy that you have a great relationship with your kids. He's like, yes. I'm like, me too. That's it. That's all we need to talk about. And he was like, fair enough. And then we just kept hanging out, and it was like he was this tough guy who had to be tough. It had to be seen as tough, but not really. He just wanted to connect with someone. He just wanted to have a connection, And it's like, I'll connect with anybody. I love connecting with people who are who are vastly different, and who other people might be like, oh, that's a hateful person. No, they're not. People believe some fucked up things, and we should hold people accountable for their beliefs and their actions. But, that's the kind of guy who would grumble all the way to his truck to drive 20 miles in the snow to pull you out of a snowbank.
Sure, for sure. And Jeff, you do a really great job on this podcast of trying to keep it focused on, okay, what can we give the people that they can do, that they can actively do to improve things? And here's one thing, is go make a connection with somebody. Start up a conversation with a stranger. It's totally fine. You're on the bus with somebody, start up a conversation with them. If they don't look like you, even better.
Yeah.
Start up a conversation, make a connection. The worst that can happen is that they can go, I don't want to talk, and turn away. Okay, so what? And I think that actually gets in the way of a lot of people striking up conversations, or, well, maybe they don't want a conversation. If they don't want a conversation, they'll tell you. And who cares?
Right.
Probably never going to see them again. But what if you make a great connection?
Yeah,
So
and it's
do
just
it. So
anybody.
just do it.
It could be, it's just somebody walking down the street. Like, I love saying like a big hello to my neighbors, and then they're just kind of, and then oh, hey, people want to connect. People just do.
Purposefully talk to somebody who you don't think thinks like you.
Yeah. Yes.
Do it on
absolutely.
purpose.
Yeah. The extreme example of this, I saw it was a meme or something. It was an Arab gentleman sitting next to a cross-dresser on the New York subway.
Sure.
And somebody posted, this is the kind of America that liberals, like, this is what you get, liberals, or something. And somebody posted, was like, yeah, this is exactly the type of America we want. Yeah. This is exactly right. Everybody's doing their thing together. And it's like, you do just get a better sense of people by just being around them. And you realize we're kind of all the same. We just want to be happy. We want to take care of our families. We want to, have good friendships. And it helps if there's only one other option, like it did with Bill and Frank.
I disagree with that. This was...
You don't think Arabs and cross-dressers should hang out on the subway?
No, Jeff. Bill could have killed Frank. Bill could have just killed Frank.
Yeah.
He probably killed others.
Yeah.
But there was something there. There was some spark. There was some beginning of an attachment that caught somebody's eye. And we can't help. We can't help it. Yeah. We need those attachments. We need connection.
Yeah.
We need real, honest to God, true, not social media, connection.
Yeah. Let's talk about the ending, because talk about connection. Yeah. In the end, Bill makes the ultimate action, speaking to his connection with Frank. In the end, Frank wants to have this particular day be his last day, and he wants to kill himself. He wants to unalive himself, as the kids are saying these days. And he's already dying. He's pretty sure he's terminal. He's already dying. And you
don't have doctors to go to in the apocalypse.
Right. And so he has a plan. He's like, give me one great last day, and then, crush these pills, put them in my wine. And spoiler alert, Bill does what he's asked, but he also puts it in his own wine. And he doesn't tell Frank about it. Frank drinks his wine, and he's like, I've taken my death drugs. And then Bill downs his wine as well. And Frank knows in that moment, Bill has just killed himself.
Sure.
And, they have a lovely conversation. You've been my purpose. I've lived a great life because of you. I don't need to go on. Let's just, die in each other's arms. Sure. You're a doctor. You're a psychiatrist. You cool with that choice?
I mean, in the apocalypse, sure. I mean, in real life, I'm really not okay with suicide. I don't think that's a choice you can make. I think that there's always hope going forward. I think that there's always, there's connections that you're going to make beyond that. So no, I don't encourage that at all in any way, shape, or form in real life.
I love that because you and I completely differ in regards to that, and I think that's wonderful.
But in the apocalypse, I mean, sure, life's a daily hellscape. So that's difficult. But I think this idea that I will never love again, there's no way to go on after this, that is the route into deep depression. And the idea that hope needs to continue to be there, that you're going to make other connections, even with the loss of your one true purpose and your one true love. I think that's giving up too soon.
Okay, let me say a sentence, and you tell me if you agree with it.
I can already tell I'm not going to agree with it.
No, I think you are going to agree with it.
Okay.
We should do everything we can to prolong our life as long as possible, under any circumstance.
No.
Okay. What are the circumstances under
that.
which that's not true?
Well, I mean, you're talking about...
okay, Frank. Were you okay with Frank's decision?
To end his life?
Yeah.
I mean, in the situation he was in, without good hospice care, without things like that, sure. In the apocalypse, sure. And there are many states now that have so-called death with dignity laws or physician-assisted ending of your life. If you want to avail yourself of that at the end of your life in your terminal, more power to you. For people in that situation, the vast majority of them, it is about autonomy. It is about making the choice for themselves.
Right.
Not about, a depression-fueled suicide. So if that's for you, more power to you.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it on either end. And part of it's just like, it's your body, your choice. I don't have any issue with that. And I understand what you're saying, where it's like, don't let grief be the powerful force to make a final choice. To make a choice that you can't come back from. That's any sort of hyper emotional state is a bad place to make a choice from. I think that's always good advice.
Now here's a really important point.
You would agree with that though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. But here's a really important point about grief. We all grieve when we lose people, and grieving takes a variety of forms. But I always get asked the question, when should you think that you're going beyond grieving and you really need to get some professional help?
Right.
If you start to think that you can't go on, that you should be dead and joining the person who has died, that's when you need to go get professional help. That's when you need to call, especially if it's urgent, you're thinking right now, that's when you call the 988 National Helpline.
Right.
Or if it's less urgent, go talk to your primary care provider, go talk to a counselor, go talk to your religious advisor and ask, how do I get some additional resources? Because this is starting to edge past grief and into depression.
Okay. Yeah, Josh, this has all been good stuff. I don't know that I have anything else I want to talk about with this episode. Were there things you wanted to cover?
No, I think we covered this really well. Great, such a great series, incredibly deep on so many different levels. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they can come up with season 2. As you pointed out in our Monday episode, you think it's going to be a vastly different theme. I think you're probably right. I actually have not played the video games, so I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, have had some spoilers. I can guess what's going to happen.
Yeah, I spoiled
but I'm really excited
for you
about
in the last episode. That's for sure.
Well, Wikipedia did as well. So
yeah. Okay, so Josh, let's turn our attention a little bit to some things that have happened in the media. This is one of the reasons we're doing this Thursday episode, is that we can be a little more timely with things that we're seeing in popular culture or just things that are in the zeitgeist. You had something you wanted to talk about with someone in professional sports.
Yeah, and I want to tell you how courageous I think Jerran Duran is. So Jerran Duran is Boston Red Sox baseball.
It's not Jerran Duran?
I bet he's never heard that before.
Oh, man.
Actually, he may not have heard it because we're old. That hits for us as we're approaching 50s.
Let's call him
Jerran.
Jerran Duran.
Jerran Duran. Okay, so Jerran Duran is a Boston Red Sox baseball player who recently announced that he had a suicide attempt in his past. There's a Netflix docuseries called The Clubhouse: A Year with the Red Sox, released earlier this month. And he stated that he attempted to take his own life during a very difficult period in the 2022 season. And he said that his primary motivation for sharing his story is to help others who are struggling with mental health and let them know that they are not alone. Apparently, his openness has already had a pretty significant impact in the Boston area, with a suicide prevention hotline reporting a spike in calls and texts. And his manager, Alex Cora, has publicly praised Duran for sharing his story and stating that he thinks he's going to save lives by speaking out. And I think he's absolutely correct. I mean, I don't know Jerran Duran, to be honest. I haven't followed baseball seriously for several years. I mean, I am a Seattle Mariners fan, but that means not following baseball very seriously for several years. So I didn't actually know about Mr. Duran until this story hit. But to come out in professional sports, the manliest of manliest professions, and admit weakness in any way is incredibly powerful. But to say, hey, I almost died by suicide, is so profoundly brave.
And he tried. He pulled the trigger and the gun just didn't go off.
Yep.
Which is, the Denzel Washington moment from Man on Fire.
I mean, it's just it is just talking about it is causing the hair on the back of my neck to stand up. It is just so powerful, and his example of talking openly about it is incredible. And I think it is absolutely what more people in the public eye need to do. Yeah, we need to say, I have thought about suicide, to destigmatize it and to be able to talk openly about it. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm in a very privileged position in my profession. We talk openly about suicide all the time. It's the job. It's what we're trained to do. But I have also seen, especially since the pandemic, for reasons that we will go into, I'm sure. If there's anything that has come out of the pandemic that's good, it is the increasing destigmatization of talking about mental health issues. Right. And Jerran Duran's example of doing that, I just have to applaud. And for sure, his revelation is going to save lives.
Yeah. And look, there's the part of the story that I just love as, from my understanding, he was struggling as a baseball player, and that was part of what led to his, his depression. And since this incident, he's doing really well. And it's great. It's a great comeback story. To where now he's been an all-star. So it's just a great story. And not to say that this is going to be the way it's going to be for everybody, that you get some sort of new lease on life. That's not going to be everybody's story. But just the fact that he shared a story at all is pretty powerful. I was warned when I started teaching not to share, too much that was personal stories of mine. And I was like, I'm teaching writing, guys. I have to. If you have an issue with it, and if I share too much, I'm okay with you firing me. I got to teach in a way that's true to me. And one of the things I share with a lot of my students is that I'm bipolar, and that I, suffered from not being diagnosed as bipolar, and now I'm doing great. I've had a couple students who've come to me and be like, hey, I'm also, bipolar. And I'm like, I understand your struggle. Let me get you some let's talk about things that you need, extra help with the class, etc. And I've had students come out of the woodwork to be like, hey, so-and-so told me that you struggle with this. I'd like to share this. And just the fact that, like, from an administrative standpoint, it's not a good idea, but from a human standpoint, it's an amazing idea. I am not Jerran Duran, but I'm trying to have the little impact that I can have on my end.
Well, look, I mean, he got after. I mean, he got after it. And he's still getting.
Yeah, it was safe to say that after he got better, he just became just hungry like a wolf.
Oh, God, go in there and you beat me to it, you son of a bitch. I was setting myself up for it and you stole it. Look, we are not at all making light of anything that Jerran Duran has gone through, except for his amazing name. Look, I don't know if he'll ever hear this. I sure hope he does. I hope he's an avid listener. But thanks for sharing your story, man.
Yeah. It's probably fair to say that he shared a story because we're sharing ours. He probably was inspired by the Sentimental podcast.
Yeah. Hey, and Jerran, if you want to come on the Sentimental podcast and talk with us, we're happy to have you.
We're not in an ordinary world anymore.
Jesus God.
I don't think that the other Jerran Duran songs are going to be songs that people know. Like, I'm looking at their top 10 hits right now, and I don't think there's anything that's anything else that people would know by name. Anyway, Josh, that does it for me in talking about The Last of Us. There's so much more that I would just geek out about. Yeah. All right, Josh, that's all I got. Shall we wrap this one up and tell people that we're going to talk about, we're talking about Minecraft next week. So we're going to continue our dive into in the video game adaptations and talk about Minecraft. I'm really excited to talk about it. There was a lot there.
To be fair, Jeff, we're not talking about Minecraft, and we're not talking about the specific Minecraft movie. We're talking about one of them. We're talking about a Minecraft movie.
Was that the actual name of it?
Yeah, that's the actual name of a Minecraft movie.
All right, great.
Yeah, which I just think was weird, but that's
sure. It should have just been called Minecraft.
That's gonna get cut. But
no, because it was embarrassing to you, so it's not gonna get cut. All right. Thanks as always for watching or listening to Sentimental and our continuing coverage of The Last of Us. If you like this episode, then that just makes sense because this was a banger. Please subscribe, and anywhere you get your podcast, you can also watch clips of Sentimental on YouTube and the full episode. We would love to hear what you would like us to cover next. Tell us anywhere. You can also watch my companion series, The One Thing, where I take a deeper dive into screenwriting, both available on the Large and in Charge channel on YouTube. Follow Dr. Josh Jones, America's Psychiatrist, on Blue Sky. This has been a Large and in Charge production. For Josh Jones, I'm Jeff Jones. And we will see you next week.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.